Okay, today's our topic is force. Force, that is in your first semester in exam, and we will have to cover it. Force. We know what is force. Effect of force. We have a video. You can go to my channel and see that one. Okay. Just formally, I am revising it a little. I will take 2 or 3 minutes. Force. So force, you know very clearly that is an external agent which when applied on an object, it changes or tries to change shape, size, motion, configuration, etc. of an object. That means is an external agent which when applied on an object, if applied on an object, it changes or tries to change. That means it is not guaranteed. That means if whenever force is applied on an object, the force will cause a change in the object, in the motion, in the shape, in the size of the object, but it can change or it will try to change. So in that series, what it changes shape, size, motion, configuration, etc. So shape and size of an object get changed whenever it is a non-rigid object. So the effect of force can be classified in 2 ways. So we will have to now classify the object as a rigid or a non-rigid object. Rigid or non-rigid object, then only we can understand the effect of force. So if the object is rigid, under that situation the force will cause a different effect. If the object is non-rigid, under that situation force will cause a different effect. So now this time we are going to study the effect of force in 2 manners, on the rigid object, on non-rigid object. So whenever force is applied on a non-rigid object, it will cause change in the shape, size, length, breadth, height, etc. of the non-rigid object. So that we are not going to study this time. So that is for the lower classes, that the shape changes, size changes. Okay, so that is not our requirement, so we have erased it. I have removed it. Now the effect of force on the rigid object, that we need to understand this time, because that we are going to do terms and the different things we are going to do. Whenever force is applied on a rigid object, it changes the motion of the object. The force applied on rigid object cannot cause change in the shape, size, etc. of the object, but whenever it is applied on the rigid object, it changes the motion of the object. And to understand the change in motion, we need to understand certain things. How much force we are applying on the object, and the object, what is the position of the object, whether it is pivoted, whether it is fixed, whether it is free to move. Okay, whatever, we will discuss it. So whenever we understand this time, whenever force is applied on a rigid object, it will cause a change in the motion of the rigid object, and the motion will vary according to the situations. So, and how it will cause change in the motion? If force is applied in the direction of motion, so now first question, what is the effect of force on the motion of the object? So we understood that whenever force is applied on rigid object, it will cause motion of the rigid object. It will क्या जाएगा, tries to make the rigid object in motion. Okay, so whenever force is applied in the direction of motion, speed of the object will increase, and motion speed will increase, and or velocity you can say. And whenever force is applied in the direction opposite to the motion, under that situation the speed will decrease. If force is applied in the direction opposite to the motions. And so opposite to the motion, that means whenever we are applying the brake on an object, and whenever and in the direction of motion, suppose you are riding a bicycle and someone is pushing from the behind. So in both of the cases, if someone is pushing from the behind, that means what? Means someone is pushing you in the direction of the motion, in the direction in which you were going. That means क्या हो जाएगा, whenever force will be applied in such a situations, it will lead to the क्या हो जाएगा, increase in the velocity, increase in the speed. And whenever the brakes are applied, means force is applied in the direction opposite to the motions. So under that situation, speed of the object will decrease. Now again, under different situations, motion will be different. It will produce different types of motions. So first we are going to understand that is the linear or translational motion. Linear or translational motion. Linear or translational motion. And other one that is the rotational motion. We are going to understand it in two ways. Rotational motion. So whenever force is applied on a rigid object, we understood that it will cause change in the motion of the object. But what kind of motion, that is not being clear till now. Till now, whatever I have taught you or whatever I have discussed, you understood very clearly कि whenever force is applied, force will cause change in the motion of the object, and if it is applied in the direction of the motion, in the direction of the motion, speed will increase, and if it is applied in the direction opposite to the motion, speed will decrease. But till now it is not clear what kind of motion, what will be the type of the motion, miss whether it will be the linear or translational motion or rotational motion, what kind of motion will be, that is not yet clear. So now this time I am going to explain whenever force will applied and if it causes to change in the motion of the object, what kind of motion it will be. So if the object is free to move, that means it is not pivoted at a particular point, it is not fixed to a particular point, it is not bounded to move at a particular point. So under that situations, the object will क्या जाएगा, object will have a linear motion. That means it will linear motion. And what is the linear motion, what is the translational motion? When each, okay, first understand what is translational motion and what is rotational motion. So what is translational? Whenever each and every point of a particle, when each and every part of a particle execute, we have moved same distance in same interval of time, it is said to be the linear or translational motion. Move same distance in same interval of time, So whenever this is done, under that situation the motion is said to be translational. And rotational, whenever an object move at a fixed point keeping the particular distance, always have the fixed distance. Whenever an object move about a particular point having the same distance always from the particular point, it is said to be the rotational motions. So these motions are brought about by the force under the different situations. First situation, we understood that whenever force is applied on an object, what I'm talking about, whenever force is applied on an object, and what kind of object, the object that is free to move. That means it is not fixed to a particular point, it is not fixed to, it is not pivoted. That means it is not, if the object is not bound to move about a point, object is not bound to rotate, means fixed to a point. Under that situation, whenever force is applied on the object, that force will lead to the linear motion of the object. But that is the linear motion. So that means object will continue, keep on moving in a particular manner in a straight line. That will be the motion of the object. But Suppose if object is not free to move, object is pivoted to a particular point. Suppose we have an object, this one, and this one is pivoted to a particular point, this point. Okay, so object is this one, if this one is object, and this one is not free to move, that means this one is bonded to this one, is fixed to a particular point. So under that situation, whenever force is applied on this object, suppose force is being applied on this object in whatever the manner, that doesn't matter, that we will discuss later, clockwise, anti-clockwise, that is different things. So whenever force is applied on this object, and this force will lead to the क्या जाएगा, if it is the rigid object, yet it is the, yes, it is the rigid object. So whenever force is being applied on this object, that force will cause motion, and although the object is not able to free, so that means it will not produce the linear motion, that means it will start moving around this particular point. So rotational motion will be produced, rotational motion will be produced, and that will be called turning effect, turning effect. That means in other way we can say the object is turning, object is moving about a particular point, and that is said to be the turning effect of the force. Now turning effect, so I hope you understood this one, that means the क्या जाएगा whole scenario, what is the force, effect of force, because you know the force, you know the effect of force, that I haven't discussed in this video because there are 2 or 3 videos in my channel, you can go and see that one. So in this video we understood the effect of force on the rigid and the non-rigid object, and also on the rigid and non-rigid object, and also how it will produce the motion, how it will affect the motion, and what kind of motion will be executed in the object and under what situations. So this one, and after that we will discuss a topic, that is the moment of force, moment of force. Don't confuse it with the momentum. Momentum, we have the 2 terms, one term that is the momentum, and the other term that is the moment of force. So never get confused with the moment and the momentum, both are the completely different terms. So moment and momentum, so obviously momentum, that will I will discuss, but that is not in your syllabus. So I will discuss it only, so you should not get confused with the moment and the momentum. Whenever the turning effect is caused, rotational motion is caused, so under that situation we have a particular term, and what that term is moment. Now our next topic will be the moment. So moment we will discuss, so before discussing moment, you should have all the concept of this one, effect of force on the object, rigid object, and linear, when it will produce the linear motion and when it will produce translational motions. So in next video we will discuss moment.